Shalom everyone, we are in Parashat Naso. Parashat Naso is the second parasha of the book of Bamidbar, Numbers. And last week, in the first parasha, we explained what is the book of Numbers about, and we see that this parasha is, like as usual, a very natural and logical extension of the first one. What did we say? Like, you know, the Hebrew calendar is based on the notion that life is a great opportunity, and if you miss opportunities, you have second, third, fourth, whatever chances to catch up. So you get it by looking at the year as a cycle that gives you basically all the opportunity, theoretically, that's what it says in the Zohar, to reach completion. However, you didn't take all the opportunities, you get to another cycle. So the cycle starts during the high holidays between Rosh Hashanah and Simchat Torah. That's why on the end of the celebrations of the high holidays, we start from Genesis. And in Hebrew, Latchil mi Bereshit, to start from Genesis, means to start all over again. It's like you have another round, let's go and get another round. That's a common Hebrew, to start from Genesis. Latchil mi Bereshit. And what does it mean? That you have just if you're starting all over again, you need to do a few things. One is reenact the rules. Okay, relearn how to walk, how to talk, how to work, whatever you do, because if you didn't get your goals in the previous years, you probably have to do something different, correct? Because if you continue to think like you used to think, you continue to get what you used to get. Okay, so you have to redo your thinking. And that's why you start from Genesis, and the book of Genesis basically is teaching us all over again what does it mean to be a human being. So you learn to be sharing from Abraham, the patriarch. You learn from Isaac that you have also to know how to take and how to make money and how to stand for yourself, and also how to control that side of yours that means I need, I want. And then after you have these two organized, which are called Chesed and Gvura, you need to learn how to take both of them and synthesize them into a third force, and that's Jacob, which means to be spiritual in the same way, to be careful about your needs, and to be generous and kind at the same time. That's not easy, right? Then you learn from Joseph how to take all of these lofty ideas and to bring them down into a physical success in a big scale. Joseph, he did it, right? The American dream. Comes to a foreign country and working very hard, and then he's becoming, the big kahuna, the big guy of the country, right? That's the American dream, and he did it in Egypt. That was very racial, very anti-whatever, he's not Egyptian and so on, and he still made it because he was talented enough, and to show that if you're using the rules properly, nothing can stop you. Prejudice, whatever, it's only something to blame, but the really successful people are the ones who did it against the odds. Now, you got the rules, you understand them, get to your war of independence. And that is the Exodus. You have to realize that we all live in Egypt, and now Egypt is our dungeon, and Egypt is something you have inside, and being a slave is a state of mind. And each one of us is a slave to some ideas, concepts, prejudice, belief systems that are not very useful for us. And they're all involved somehow with narrow-mindedness, small thinking, and being a slave to all kinds of selfishness. Different people, different problems, right? But we all have the same big issue, being slaves too. A, B, C, what people think about us, how much do we weigh, like what about this job and that, we all have that, and that's, so Exodus, the book of Exodus is about fighting for your freedom. Then comes the book of Leviticus, you're free, what's your calling? And in Hebrew, Leviticus is Vayikra, and he called, the calling. So it's all about fine-tuning and getting like pure enough, quiet enough, to get the calling of what am I really about and what do I really want. You finish that, now go and get it. And that's a book of Numbers. And you can never get it by yourself. The way Rabbi Ashlag, the commentator, the great commentator of the Zohar, says, the way you get it is you have to remember that the Creator created humans in a way that whatever you really need, somebody else has it. So you need to be nice to them so you can get it from them. So the Zohar says that's why the world has wise people and stupid people, so the wise people have somebody to teach. Rich people and poor people, so the rich people have somebody to share it with. And everything works on these polarities that you need others to make it happen. You can't just make it happen by yourself. If you want to make it happen by yourself, and that means you move to the desert and live by yourself, you'll be punished for that, right? Being alone, without cell phones, without electricity, without any services and, craftsmen, you will suffer. That will be your punishment. You can't without the others. Also, you can't with them. So you have to get along with them. So, how do you do that? That we started about Parashat Bamidbar last week. And Parashat Bamidbar, which means in the desert, that's simply what it is. In English, it's called Numbers. Why? The whole book, they're counting. They're counting how many from this tribe, how many from this tribe. We have how many firstborns, how many Levites, how many Kohanim, how many, and we said it last week. Why do we need to know how many? So, traditionally, they say God wants to know how many of his children are there. So, I will say it again. The date given last week's parasha was the first day of Iyar, which is just a month ago. If you really read the story, it means that it's for a year that the Israelites are getting the manna from heaven. So if you're catering to a whole nation for a whole year, you're supposed to know how many you're feeding. Otherwise, you're in trouble, right? Any business of feeding, if you have no idea how many people you're feeding every day for the last year, you have a problem. So right now you want to count them after a whole year that you really feed them and everybody got, it says, exactly enough for what they need. So asking that question, the Zohar is giving out the answer. It's not that God wants to know the numbers. He wants to do something else. The Hebrew word is sphira, which means counting, but sphira in Hebrew means also an illumination. If you learn a little bit Kabbalah, the tree of life of Kabbalah is made of 10 sephirot, plural of sphira. So it means illumination. Even in English you know that, because sapphire in English, it's a Hebrew word. And it's coming from the word sapir, which means a shining stone. Shining. So, when we talk about sephirah, we're talking, in English when you speak about sphere of influence. How far can you shine and affect other people? Correct? So, you can look at it as the book of Numbers. You can look at it as the book of Illuminations. So what does it mean? When do people illuminate? And the answer is, we said it in last week's parasha and it appears all over again. I checked in some books the translation of the text into English. And the word is Naso et rosh bnei Israel. The English text says, make a census of the Israelites. Simple Hebrew, if you ask like somebody, like a kid from school, what does it mean, Naso et rosh? Never means to count. Naso means to raise. Rosh means head. Raise the heads of the children of Israel. When is that you raise somebody? When you make him feel that you count on him, that you take him into account, right? When you come to someone and you tell him how important it is for you, for the company, for whatever, for the community, and you explain, you're unique, you're different, and you're special, what do? You raise their heads. You know what happens? That's exactly what we said. And the Zohar says, since the beginning of the history of mankind, mankind was very much dysfunctional. Why? If you learn about the ancient history, the world was divided to oppressors and serfs, slaves. That was it. There were no people who were members of a community. They were the property of the tyrants, the kings, or whatever. Being a pagan meant living a terrible life. Why? Because if you read any kind of ancient mythology, the gods were really nasty, vicious, egocentric. They never control their emotions. If they see something you have, they will take it away from you. And politically, it's a genius idea. Why? Because the kings declare themselves as gods, which means if they do it, and I'm part of the pantheon, I may do it also. And if you have something nice, I'll take it away, including your children, your property, whatever you did. So the moral is, don't excel too much, because the gods will be jealous and take it away from you, and keep a low profile. And if you keep a low profile, be modest, and you never raise your head or raise your voice, especially raise your head, nobody will notice, and you will go through life with a minimal pain and misery. Right? That was paganism. Comes Abraham, and he says, hey guys, that's wrong. The universe is one, and there's one God. He's all love, he's endless love, and he loves everyone equally, no matter what. Okay, and that means that every person deserves to be treated with dignity. What a revolution. I don't know if mankind 4,000 years later got it till now, because not enough people behave that way, right? But the message over here is that when there's a whole nation that got the Torah on Mount Sinai and got the idea, we're celebrating Shavuot, always next to Parashat Naso. And what is Shavuot about? The Mount Sinai revelation, the celebration of the giving of the Torah. It says very simple in the parasha that explains the story. The Israelites are walking in the desert for 7 weeks after the Exodus. Okay, they go through trials and tribulations. However, the most important thing they reach is as they get to Mount Sinai, it says, Vayichan sham Yisrael keneged har. And Israel camps in single. In Hebrew it has a different word for single and plural. As one person in front of the mount. Rashi says, the great commentator from the 11th century, he says, Ke'ish echad belev echad. As one man with one heart. The moment that has been accepted, then the Torah could come on Mount Sinai. And therefore, Mount Sinai revelation is always in the sign of Gemini. What is Gemini? The sign of the twins, two who are one. 2 tablets. You're not alone. You can't get it by yourself. It's all about love others as you love yourself. What can we do? That's the way it is. You have to realize you have to get others into your world and to share your world with them if you want that to be successful. So, but that's not enough. You really need to apply it. So the Zohar says the moment you have a system of the portable temple, the tabernacle, Kohanim, Leviim, the Kohens and the Levites and the Israelites. And what kind of Israelites? 12 tribes, each one for a different direction. Why they didn't do integration? You know, they tried to do integration in many countries. It was always disastrous. Why? Because you can't create functionality when you erase people's unique nature. We are born differently, we are raised differently, and we have to be like this. Some people are very good at this, and some people are very good at that. If everyone will try to do the same thing all over again, that will be A, boring, and 2, who's going to bake if everybody's going to be a carpenter or a doctor, right? Who's going to be a patient? We need to be different. That's why also, when the Zohar speaks about 12 tribes, and the Zohar says that the 12 tribes, they fit the definition of the 12 signs of the Zodiac. Why is that important? It's not because we have to believe that, your destiny is being written in heaven, but you have to understand that people, like, what is the concept of 12 signs of the Zodiac? That first of all, the month you're born is showing that you have naturally some tendencies, okay, that others don't. It's not just a month, because not everybody born in the same month is the same kind of a person. It's also the hour, okay? It's a rising sign. It's also the planets, but the concept is what it says in the Talmud. If somebody was born under the influence of Mars, planet Mars, they like blood. He can be a murderer. He can be a soldier. They're professional soldiers. He could be a surgeon. He could be a mohel, make circumcisions. He can be a butcher. By the way, don't we need this kind of people? Except from the murderer, we need the others, right? And, I know some people that if they see blood, they faint on the spot. Somebody has to do surgery. Somebody has to do circumcision. Somebody must have the nature that, they love to deal with blood. Not everybody does, correct? Somebody must have this inclination, otherwise who's going to do the job? What's important about it, that you have to recognize that we are different. And because we're different, the only way we can function is by recognizing each other's qualities and what the other, and let's say you run a business. The worst thing you can do to a person is to give them a job that they're not good with. They'll hate you, you'll hate them, and it will be a disaster, right? If you just find what's good about that person, giving what he's good about, he will love his job. He'll be much more functional. You will love him. Everything will be great. So it's all about, finding the qualities and every person has some unique qualities that the others don't have. And that's why the name of the parasha is, if we didn't get it in Parashat Bamidbar, we have to get in this parasha. Naso means, all over again, raise the heads of. How do you make it work? Just make sure that you raise people's heads up. Now, that will be good in everything. Let's say you're part of a business. If you have people working with you and they feel suppressed, upset, not qualified, not appreciated, what happens? Everybody loses. It's lose-lose situation. Same thing in the family. Same thing in the community. One of the biggest things people don't understand, and that's what this is about. The word Bamidbar could be read in the desert, but it could also be read Bamedaber. Your force is when you speak. Abracadabra. It's Hebrew. Ava means in Hebrew, I create. Kadabra means as I speak. Your speech creates reality. If you think about it, if we are part of a society, taking a position in society is not just, what do you do? It's also how many people do you raise every day? Just telling them that you appreciate them. Just telling them that you recognize who they are and you take them into account. That's the whole thing. You can get a functional environment just by making sure that people recognize each other. Just if everybody will do that, that will turn the whole society into a different place. Just if everybody will know that, I just care for you and I'm really, really thankful for who you are and what are you doing, because we all have to be grateful for what you're doing. Just you tell it to a person, he will be much more functional, correct? As a family member, as how many people become really destructive when everybody tells them, oh, you're a disaster, you don't know, but you're good for nothing. And so how many people go around with a trauma, that in a way give a living to a lot of shrinks, right? My father told me I'm good for nothing. My mother told me I will never be able to give her satisfaction like your brothers who learn medicine and this stuff. Everybody knows this talk. It's terrible. You can destroy somebody's life. What if that person, what if that child was not born to be a doctor? It can't be that everybody will be doctors and lawyers and accountants, right? Can't. Somebody has to clean the garbage, right? Can you imagine what happens if nobody cleans the garbage? Why? Because nobody's like, no, well, I'm not doing that. My mother will be really upset if I'm going to be the garbage cleaner, right? And I think a lot of people think in horror, what if my child would choose to be a garbage cleaner? But okay, let somebody else's. But still, you have to be appreciative that some people love cleaning the garbage, right? Because you don't like to do it. So maybe they will like to do it. And some people like to do some other stuff that other people don't, and that's the way we're created. So the whole thing that humanity is like a big kaleidoscope of different talents and abilities and qualities, that the real thing is that an education system supposed to find what every child is good at and let them be appreciated in what they're good at. Some people are terrible in math. Does that mean they're going to be failures in life? I know a lot of people, they made a lot of money. How come you don't know how to do math? You can always hire an accountant to do the math for you, correct? You don't have to do the math, right? So why do you have to get these kids guilty for so many years because they're terrible at math? Correct? Why do you have to do that to them? We still have something to learn, but that's how this parasha is continuing the thing that if you want to be in a functional society, you need to learn how to get people cooperative by, first of all, acknowledgement. And Naso et Rosh means, first of all, acknowledgement. And which is a very important, if not a crucial, condition for success in anything. Now, the Zohar goes on, which is a very important thing, and it says, מצווה זו היא להיות הלוויים משוררים במקדש, ואף על פי שכבר עמדנו למעלה, כאן צריך לחדש דברים. כי הכהן הוא המקריב קורבן, והוא המלאך מיכאל שהוא חסד. והחסד הוא כהן. לוי הוא גבריאל שהוא גבורה, וגבורה נקראת לוי, והוא צריך לנגן. So he's starting to say, people need to be different. Some people are like a Kohen. The Kohen, his quality was that he was connected to Archangel Michael. What is Archangel Michael about? Loving and kindness. Okay? That's his job. His job is to bring that energy to the people around him. And that's why, till today, in a synagogue, the people are Kohanim. They are the ones who have to bless the people to give them that energy of loving kindness. Sometimes you cannot generate it by yourself, so you need somebody else to feed you with that. As we said, no one can be self-sustained. Impossible. You always need somebody else. But what about the Levites? Are they second-class citizens? No, the Levites, if the Kohen is loving kindness, the Levites are Gevura. Translated by mistake, English is not made for that, as judgment. Now, the word judgment is usually negative, right? In Hebrew, the word Gevura has some other meanings. The word Gevura in Hebrew means to overcome. Ezeu Gibor, who is the hero? Hagover al Yitzro, the one who overcomes his inclination, which means the one who has self-control. Also, the one who knows how to transform his reactions. That makes you a hero, right? A hero is not someone, as the sages are saying, Gadol hagover et yitzro miloched ir. The one who overcomes his inclinations or his reactions is much bigger than the one who conquers a city. Because, you know, history is full of people that conquered cities, created huge business, and have not even a little bit of self-control, which usually brings to a massive disaster. The more power you have, and the more disastrous it becomes when you start to get crazy because you have no control over your rage, over your jealousy, over how many kings killed, you know, if you come to Israel and you hear about King Herod. He killed his wives, he killed his sons, he killed his best friend. Why? He could not control his fears and anxieties that these people, because they're close to him, they're going to take the throne. Finally, he was left alone, without the people he loved, because he killed all of them. But by the way, you read about the Roman Empire, they poisoned everyone. Always. So, what's the use if you have power, if you can't overcome the fear, the anxiety, and you become neurotic and psychotic? What's the use? So you have a lot of power, but you're miserable. You're miserable. Why? Because you have no ability to overcome your reactions. So when we're saying Gevura, it's not judgment. It's the ability to overcome. It's the ability to have discipline, the ability to raise yourself above, to say, yeah, I have shortcomings, I have this inclination and this anxieties and that. Like everybody, nobody's perfect, but I'm fighting. I'm giving a good fight. If you give a good fight, how do you give a good fight? So the first thing with that is, if we say that chesed is water, gevura is fire. Now, is fire always negative? Of course not. In Hebrew, it's beautiful the way you see it. In Hebrew, you could say there's a fire of excitement. And how do you say excitement? It's itlahavut. It's coming from the word lehava, flame. But there is a fire of daleket, hidalkut, inflammation. And that inflammation, when a person has inflammatory nature, that leads to, science will prove, leads to inflammation in the arteries of the heart. That's called the coronary disease. Why? People get too much inflamed and they create a lot of cholesterol because of that. Because of the rage and the anger, sometimes suppressed, sometimes not suppressed. Whatever, it settles, as the Zohar says, the cholesterol is secreted by your liver and it settles in your arteries and blocks them, creates inflammation. So either you are getting dalakti, which is inflammatory, or you get excited about life, which is itlahavut. Which one do you choose? To get excited about stuff or to get the inflammation? When you get the excitement, when you have chesed, loving and kindness, together with the energy. And that goes with excitement of happiness. What were the Levites doing? Music. Music. Right? Music means a lot. For instance, everybody who does exercise knows, science shows that, when you do exercise with good music, good fire music, your results are much, much better. That is proven. Why? Because happy music can do a lot. When you do stuff with happiness, wow, the whole thing will be much better. Not just this, if you live your life with excitement, you live your life with music. So when we're talking about Chesed and Gevura, Chesed is the Archangel Michael, and Gevura is Archangel Gabriel. Okay? Gabriel from Gevura. Okay? You need to have both inside you, But every society needs to have those people that bring up the chesed, bring up the gevurah, so that will complement each other. Somebody has to be the ones who get everybody excited, get everybody singing, get everybody happy about things. You need that. You know, some people are not very good. They're very good organizers. They're very good talkers, but, you know, they're cold, right? So you need someone to get it warm, to get it excited. So it's not that this one is wrong and this one is right. It's like we are communities, and communities are much better than living alone. And if somebody remembers, there was a best-selling book in America in the 80s. It was called Love and Survival by Dean Ornish. Right? This book took a lot of research and scientific, and what did it say? If you have a community, your chances to get heart diseases are much lower. If you got the heart disease already, and you go through surgeries and strokes and stuff like this, if you're part of a community, you have much higher chances to survive it. If you have a spiritual community, not just a community, a spiritual community, your chances to survive are doubled. Which means, now we understand why does it say in Ethics of the Fathers, "Aseh lecha rav ukneh lecha chaver." Make yourself a teacher and buy yourself a friend. Everybody knows that making a community is a headache. It's investing of time and money and meetings and boards and stuff, and it's a, what do I need this headache for? It will save you your life. You know, paying for doctors will cost you much more than paying for the raising the community. And community is not coming for free. Turning a business into a community, that's not for free. Turning a family relationship into a community, that's not for free. You know, many times, when you study Kabbalah, you learn that no free lunches. No free lunches. And some people doubt it. You know, I see this guy, he didn't work at all, but he made a lot of money. This guy didn't try a lot, but he found this amazing wife, and she found this amazing husband. They were not like, they were just, it happened by chance, and they had amazing kids and so on. So I ask, you know what? How many people do you know that they got a functional family without investing any effort in that? Everybody knows, no. If whatever investment you put in, that's what you get. So, for whoever thinks you can get free lunches, no, you can't. And if it's free, it's going to be taken away very easily and very fast. Okay? Yeah, you have freebies you can get only for a short round. It's just a taster. Remember that. Tasters you get for free. And tasters don't last long. Okay, so now that we got that, now we can understand something very important. Parashat Naso is also the parasha in the Zohar itself. Although in the book itself, in the original Torah portion, you have, after that story about Naso, which is again, appointing people for their jobs with all the respect. Like you guys, especially appointed for their job because nobody else can do it but you. Okay? And we know very well when people, whatever they do, when they're appreciated, when they feel there's a goal, they feel the community sense, their functionality and also the productivity is much higher than that. Every research in that field will show you that. Every research. Which will show that if a company, they found out that, whoever read the book Built to Last by Johnson, and he just did the research and he looked at 18 great companies in America in the Wall Street stock market from 1926 to 1990. And that companies of vision. And he compared it to companies of money. Same size, same market. Okay? Who made more money? From 1926, you have the Big Depression. You have World War II. You have the Cold War. We have the baby boomers in that time. Right? You have a lot of incidents in between. Who made more money? So the companies who were money-oriented, he just said, if you just invested $1 in these 18 companies, great companies, big companies, famous companies, you made $455 over this period of, okay, from 1926 to 1990. But if you invested that dollar in the 18 companies of vision, that they care for the vision more than they care for the money. That's how the customers feel like. How did he get these names? He took 500 top leaders in the American economy, and he asked them, simply, from your life experience, which companies really do care more for the vision of service than for the money? He took 18 of the top companies. Those companies, over that same period, didn't make $455 from $1. They made $2,600, which means being part of a company that has a vision, that functions as a community, it makes much more money. Much, much more money. Now, there was a research that was financed by the Federal Reserve and MIT 2009, and they found out what makes people more productive. And they found it's not the money. The money is just the beginning. After a certain amount that the person is kind of comfortable, it's meaning. Why? What's number one enemy of a business person? Erosion. Stress and erosion. What does it mean, erosion? You have highs and you have buys. You have disappointments and you have betrays. And you're working on something and then it doesn't go. And you get upset and depressed and upset and depressed. It's not, making... I don't know anyone who made a lot of money without any failures on the way. Correct? The more you succeeded, the more blows you got on the way. That's why it says, King Solomon said, Sheva ipol tzadik v'kam. A righteous will fall 7 times and will rise up again. That's, And what do they say? The losers are the ones who didn't get up, didn't try all over again. And the ones who failed are the ones who stopped trying. But if you don't have a spiritual goal, which is bigger than your own life, there's erosion. Little by little, you start to get hurt. You become cynical. You become cold. Your emotions start to be kind of suppressed. And that has a payment. But the moment you do it, not just for the money, you do it for a bigger purpose. So you're not insulted personally when things don't go right. You say, okay, I tried. I did my best. And I try all over. Because the goal is much more important for me to declare failure. And because you don't take it personally, because the vision is much more important. And especially if you learn to be spiritual, then you have more energy to overcome, you have less erosion, and you're more satisfied because you don't see any failures as a personal hurt. But, that's what it takes to make the world better. Now, so this is the first thing, and that brings us to something that is very important. The Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, 18th century East Europe, said he was a great person of wisdom, Holy Spirit, prophecy, whatever you just named. And somebody asked him, when would Messiah come? What does it take? When would the Messiah come? When mankind will reach finally peace? And his answer was, when every person will be simply doing their job. Which basically leads to what we just said. when would people do their job? First of all, when you create an environment of appreciation. When you create an environment that people support each other instead of criticizing each other. And even if you criticize people, you can always say, you know, I think that you can do much better and I really support you for doing that. That's much more productive than saying you're dumb and what you're doing is terrible, right? That's more productive and you get much better results, correct? But especially if you do it authentically. Because if you just say it, but you don't really mean that, that's even more upsetting. And it gets people to spite you because you're cheating. You're trying to manipulate me. You don't really like me. But that's not just enough. The next issue in this parasha is God says to Moses, Tzav et Bnei Israel, that's chapter 5 in the book of Numbers, verse 1. And it says, order the children of Israel, and they should send away from the camp whoever has leprosy, whoever has any kind of deficiencies, and whoever is impure. Now, the word impure, if you don't know the language, it's like, oh, it's dirty. No, the word impure in Hebrew means blocked. Tameh comes from the word blocked, atum. When you want to say this guy is dumb, it's like the ancient expression is tumtum, metumtam, which means he's blocked, atum, simply blocked. Why is he blocked? Oh, people get blocked usually. And let's say you try to tell someone who's working for you that he did something wrong. The moment you raise your voice and you show that you're really upset about him, he gets totally blocked, he's not listening anymore, right? Because usually when you attack people, their ability to understand is blocked. So when a person is too reactive, he's blocked. He can't get whatever you're going to tell him right now. You know, you should do this and this and this, and you can tell him the best, most important information in the world. He got 0. Why? He's blocked. He can't overcome his reaction. Correct? What do you want from him? It's like, you have to make it, you know, if you want him to understand, you have to speak with a smile and with appreciation. And do you know, when the teacher appreciates a student, the student becomes brilliant. Correct? There was a big famous experiment that was done. It was a terrible experiment. They gave the teachers that started a new year, so a new teacher at school, they didn't know that no one in the class, and they switched the reports from last year. There was horrible boys and girls. They were attached with the best reports of the most cooperative and successful boys and girls. And what happened was, the teachers treated the kids according to the report. By the end of the year, the kids the teacher thought they are the best kids in the class, they were the best, the most successful. Why? Because the teacher gave them the treatment that you treat winners, so they became winners. And the ones who were the most successful in the past year, and they were treated like troublemakers, they became the troublemakers. So, remember now what Naso means? Raise the heads. But what if a person became already blocked and is terribly functioning? So, he has to be locked out. He has to be taken outside for quarantine till they get better and then they come back. And you know very well, there's a big theory about business, that the whole business can be functional as the slowest dysfunctional link, correct? Because they slow down everybody else. So instead of killing them or leaving them in position, you have to take them aside and get them back into functionality and then get them back. Because why should everybody suffer because they're not functioning? But that reminded me another thing. remember many, many years ago, I heard about this retreat in Texas that people who had cancer went to. What did they did in that retreat? People got up 5 o'clock in the morning. They had an hour exercise, very intense exercise. They had a very short breakfast. Then they had meditations for 20 minutes. It's like the whole day was regimented, like really like boot camp, for days and days and days and weeks. And they found out that they got cured from cancer. How good? Think about it. What's the problem with societies? Dysfunctional individuals, right? The more individuals in the society are dysfunctional, the less functionality you get from the society. What's the problem with the person having cancer? Dysfunctional cells, dysfunctional tissues. So what if a whole society gets a new CEO, okay, that gets everybody excited about a goal that is altruistic, positive, fair, honest, and everybody gets excited except from some party poopers, right? So what happens? It's being tested. If most people are excited, what happens to the party poopers? Some of them simply hate everyone, because it's very easy to blame everyone and not to change, right? Everybody, you know, people come to work in a government office, and you become, and you're so excited, and people kill you. It's like, why are you so productive? They now blame us for being lazy. You set different rules and different goals, correct? So who's the majority? They will. So if the majority is excited about life, excited about creating stuff, so the party poopers will either hate them so much and they run away to some other places they can be complaining about everything on their own, or they will change. How did they get the idea? There was a story about centuries ago. There was this guy in the Netherlands. He was making clocks. He made a lot of clocks, and he had a basement. And one day something got into him, and he wound all the clocks. And they made so much noise, he ran away from the basement. He couldn't stand there, couldn't stay there. The next day he came back to the basement, and he realized all the clocks are ticking at the same pace. And what happened is, when you get a person with his community all ticking in the same pace, and everything is excited on a positive fire, chesed and gvura, loving kindness and fire of excitement, then your body cells are starting to get into the rhythm also. So what happens to the cells that are the party poopers? Either they've been spitten out, or they get back into business. And suddenly, and I saw a lot of my students that, you know, people had cancer, and they decided, I have to walk my talk. If I'm studying that stuff, I have to do it. And they started to really live their life with excitement, like doing exercises, working, everything with excitement. And then they come back, and you know, they come and say, the doctor told me I lost the growth. I had this tumor, and they disappeared. They have no idea where it went to. Who cares when it went to? Right? If it got out, or it changed itself and get back to business, who cares? The fact is, the guy is healthy. And when do people get sick? When all the cells in your body starts to slow down, because you're depressed, because you gave up, because nothing excites you anymore, because you get hit too many times and you lose hope. And when that gets very slow, those party poopers, that we get them all the time. We get cancerous cells all the time, but usually healthy people, they throw it away. Why? They don't fit. But the moment everything is slow, those party poopers start to gain power. Why? Because everybody else is slow. But when you go with a lot of power, you can change it. And that's why the next issue in the parasha is about teshuvah, repentance. What does it mean? Somebody is not functional. Does that mean they're doomed? Teshuvah means Simply repentance. Really returning back. Which means, how many people really want to be dysfunctional? How many people really wants to be miserable, hateful, angry, whatever, trouble? How many people want to be trouble? No, nobody wants to. So why they do that? There can't be something else. They don't have enough energy. So how do you get into tshuva? The whole thing, tshuva, is about basically returning to your own self, to your own original voice. Which means, on one hand, it speaks about those people that the party poopers, that you have to get them out, but then it says, but everybody can transform and become better. Then comes another story, and that is the peak of this parasha. It's a story which is called the Sotah. Weird story. Okay, the story goes like this. The Torah says, if it happens to be that a man, a husband, gets suddenly attacks of jealousy, and he has this crazy jealousy, he believes that his wife is betraying him, he has no evidence, but he's like crazy about it. People get this craziness. So they both go to the Kohen in the temple, and the Kohen takes holy water. He writes the name of God backwards on a piece of parchment. He puts it in the water, and then he gives the woman to drink. Now, it's a very weird story. The Torah says, if she betrayed the husband, she will swell, get sick, it will be horrible what happens to her. But if she didn't, she will be healthy, nothing will happen. Not just this, she will get pregnant out of it. What a way to treat jealous husbands, right? Just think about psychologically, the woman takes it, now that the Kohen says, look, your wife is healthy, everything, she didn't betray you. What a way, right, to treat anxiety attacks of husbands. But then comes the Zohar and says, and there's another thing, I'm sorry, there's debate about that. Because of this Torah law, women who are barren, didn't have children, will start behaving in a weird way. There's a debate about it. They will start behaving in a weird way, so the husband will get jealous, take them to the Kohen, get the potion, and then they could get pregnant. So women had the initiative, like the drive to get the husband jealous, so because they can get the potion, they get pregnant because of that, because they believe in that. Okay, but that's not our case. The case is what the Zohar is saying, Ke'ein zeh, the same thing will happen in the last generation before the redemption. What does it mean? And he says, in the last generation, before the redemption, the whole nation will be treated as the woman that betrayed. Now, as we said, we are calling the holiday of Shavuot, Mount Sinai Revelation. It is being called as the wedding between the nation of Israel and God. That's why you wear white, and it's the whole thing about, it's like a celebration, like a wedding. Now, the problem is, if, as the sages are saying, if that was a wedding, so the sin of the golden calf was a terrible betrayal, the wife betraying her husband. The destruction of the first temple was again another round of betrayal, and the destruction of the second temple was another round of betrayal. Now, how are we going to be treated to repent from that and to heal from that? Says the Zohar, in the time of the redemption, the water of the Sotah will be the treatment. What's the water of the Sotah? It says that will be, can you imagine? You're a woman in a village, your husband is getting really crazy, and he takes you to the temple. You come over there to this huge building, You're standing in front of the high priest. You are scared to death because you heard stories about women that got swollen up and you're crazy with the pressure, right? You need to have a lot of faith that nothing will happen to you. Correct? Then you've been given with this really scary ceremony. You get to drink the potion and you just like, you can just die from the fear. Okay? Why is that connected? So the Zohar says, in the future to come, the whole world will become like the potion of that woman. What does it mean? It's in the Zohar of Perush HaSulam, verse 90. And it says, V'amaskilim yavinu. It says, I'm sorry, verse 89. Ke'ein ze yaseh lenasot et Yisrael b'geula ha'achona. In the last redemption, that will be the same story. What will be the potion? That will be the atmosphere. You look around and it looks like everything is so stressful. The pace of life is so intense. And what happens? It says, "Yitbareru v'itlabnu v'itzarfu rabim." The stress will start sorting people out. How do you really know a person? Going out to drink coffee? No. So our sages are saying, you really want to know a person? Bekoso kiso kaso. Koso, get him some drinks. The wine comes in and the secrets will come out. Okay. Another way, kiso, ask him for money. You know, it could be very nice. The moment it comes to money, some people really transform Dr. Jekyll, they become Mr. Hyde. Right? And then the third one, kaso. When you see the person behaves under pressure, when they get upset, then you can tell, which means that's when you can tell between the men and the boys. In our generation, when everything is so intense, you can really see, the Zohar says, what it says, "Itbareru v'itlabnu v'itzarfu rabim." He says it's like when you get the gold out of the quarry, it doesn't look like gold. It looks like dirt. But the first thing is you have to sort it out between real stones and stones that have some golden ores. You sort it out. That's itbareru. Then v'itlabnu. Then you have to heat it up in an iron furnace. What happens? The dirt burns up and the gold starts to be accumulated. You accumulate that and you collect it, and then you do it all over again a few times. It's called refinery, right? These are the three stages. And the Zohar says, in our generation, we're going through this refinement. You see, some people go to the extreme, selfishness, greed, whatever. People will just do everything for money, for power, whatever, because there's a lot of it. There's a lot of money. Never in history there was so much money on earth. Never in history there was so much power. Never in history there were so many resources created by mankind. Never in history you had so many egomaniacs running these resources, and you look at it from the side and you say, like, they're crazy. How can you abuse the trust that your customers, voters, whatever, give in your hands? But you know, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So people get, on one hand, you can see people going so crazy, so many of them. On the other hand, you see people who start to fight, and they're fighting for meaning, spirituality, honesty, and it's not easy. And you start realizing how you can tell this side and that side. The ones who choose the darkness and the ones who choose the light. The ones who choose balance and the ones who choose the extremes. Hatred, whatever, greed, whatever stuff. And then it says, V'az hamaskilim yavinu, and he quotes from the book of Daniel chapter 12 about the redemption. V'hamaskilim yazhiru kezohar harakia. This is means that the people with knowledge will shine like the splendor of the heaven. Or in Hebrew, we shine like the Zohar. By the way, this is the first verse of the book, which is called Zohar, the Book of Splendor. And that's why it says, B'chibur hazeh shelcha, with this book of yours, of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who is the main author of the Zohar, shenikra tshuva, because the knowledge of the Zohar is called teshuvah. What is teshuvah? Return. Bring back. Return to what? Every person wants to be happy. Every person wants love. Deep inside, every person wants to be treated with kindness, and he wants to earn that. How do you know? You take some of the worst people, you put them in the right environment, they can change. Just if they will be treated with dignity and appreciation, and somebody will be there to raise their heads. There's a story, one famous story in the Mishnah. There was this guy, his name was Reish Lakish. He was a bandit. The truth was, he was the leader of the bandits in the area of the Levant, like Israel and Iran. Like, he was responsible for killings, for robbery, for like violence and all kinds of... And he was very physically powerful. And there was this Rabbi Yochanan, who was so beautiful. He was not handsome, he was beautiful. Like, very few men in history were so beautiful like he was. So Reish Lakish passed by the river, and he sees Rabbi Yochanan on the other side. He's so excited. He jumps the other side, and he says, "You religious? What a waste! Your beauty should go to women." Rabbi Yochanan was not reactive. He looks at Rabbi Reish Lakish, who just jumped over the river. He says, "Wow, what a waste! Your strength should go for the Torah." And then says Rabbi Yochanan, "You know what? Let's make a deal. If you want to study with me regularly, I have a sister, she looks like me, but she's a woman." That guy was straight. "So, if you study with me, I will marry my sister to you." That's what happened. Reish Lakish became one of the most famous scholars of the Mishnah. He became like a teammate with Rabbi Yochanan, and the Mishnah is full of his wisdom. And he was, why? Because somebody told him, "Your strength is amazing, I appreciate it. You know what? I'm willing to give my precious sister to be your wife, and I'm willing to give a lot of my time to study with you because I really see the potential in you." That was enough to turn that guy from a bandit to a sage, because somebody believed in him. So, and that's why? Because deep inside, every human being was born in the image of God. Each one of us wants to return to their place. You just need the incentive, the influence, and somebody to raise your head. And it starts with all of us. We can all start, just make a few phone calls a week to someone that you feel that just calling them to say something nice can raise their head a little bit. If we all start to do few phone calls like this, that can spread all over the world like positive fire. Just doing that. And then it says, because the Zohar has the ability to bring people back to themselves, to feel themselves, because the Zohar brings you that trust all over again, whoever is going to study the Zohar will have like a shortcut. You don't have to go through so much stress in this generation like most people go. And I know, I was teaching Zohar for the last 35 years for so many people, and you see, people come to me and say, if I didn't know the Zohar, whatever I'm going through, I would go really crazy. But when you have a different consciousness, you can go through it without suffering, unnecessary suffering. It's not always that we choose what we can go through, but we have a lot of power, more than we can imagine, to choose how do we react to it. So, have a great week and a great holiday of Shavuot. Thank you very much.